Better tell everyone else we're actually taping now, I'm guessing.
So we're going to start rolling, everyone?
Hey, let me check and see where my ETA is on.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
As always, editing.
Well, to talk about that, first of all, what were you talking about, though, in terms of this must be enjoyable knowing that you guys are back at it and doing as good or better music than you've ever done. Is there...
It's certainly a relief to have the album out
Yeah.
after what seems like quite a long journey,
Yeah.
to say the least.
Well, it's been a year since we finished it.
Yep.
Yeah.
But we had to go through, a lot of record company nonsense. We swapped companies, and so a lot of it was sitting around and waiting for this, piece of work you laboured a long time over to finally see the light of day. So, finally, yesterday came out, and it's like, relief, finally.
Did you guys, was there like kind of a, I know you guys have been working very hard this week, but is there kind of a little bit of a celebration? Like knowing, like what you guys told each other, like this is a big deal, this album's out.
It's just the it's the end of the first chapter, really. And yesterday was it was a big celebration. We played at the Tower Records on Sunset, and it was extremely rock and roll.
Yeah.
We did the Tonight Show, and it was all very tiring, and 1.5 hours of signing autographs.
Yeah.
And but went to bed and head hit the pillow and went straight out.
But how gratifying is it knowing that the fans are still there and more fans are coming and signing all those autographs of people that love you guys?
I mean, well, last night playing, in front of all those people was actually, it was a nice feeling, especially after all day we've been sitting around at a TV show, because with a Tonight Show, which you have to sit around all day for doing 4 minutes worth of appearance, and all things you have to do, but then to go and actually play for a proper audience, and it was definitely gratifying. It was fun.
How has that kind of stuff changed since the last go around with the two of you? Does the business, I know you've both been busy with other projects, does the business seem the same, or have things changed this last year with the album struggles for this one?
Well, the groupies are older. I mean, there's sort of these 40-year-old women turning up wanting pecks on the cheek and cuddles, and they still look as sexy.
We get to meet their kids now. Yeah, it's the big plus.
In terms of the business side of things, is it a different world out there that you guys have been privy to in terms of how the labels have changed and getting an album out? Is it frustrating, or are you guys kind of used to all that and it's easy?
For us, it was frustrating. We were stuck in the middle of a label going under effectively, even though it's still part of the BMG structure, which is the label we were on. There's a big consolidation in the music industry, so it's really only a few big corporations that run 90% of it, and which is different to when we worked together before. And it's very much run like they try to run it like a regular industry, which the entertainment industry is so not a regular industry. Because there's no predicting, you can't really plan for the entertainment industry, even though they try to, and it's very much based on quarterly results now, which it never used to be. There was a lot more artist development. You would have to stick with this band and see them through their growth period until they got to a certain stage where hopefully if you did all the right things they'd get to make it. And now it really is much more, you have 3 months and then we're done. So in that sense it's different. In a musical sense I don't find it that much different. Musically, depending on your personal taste, my personal taste says there's 80% of the music is pretty disposable and 20%'s great, and I think that's always been the case, so I don't think that side of it's changed.
If you guys were the band you were starting out now, do you think it would have been?
Well,
you guys did it pretty big, relatively quick.
Well, we did, but if we'd have started out the same way as we started out initially, no, we would have been dropped. No question about it. We were signed to, one guy fought for us, which wouldn't happen nowadays, and we were signed for 2 singles, both of which, this is in England, both of which flopped. The guy who signed us managed to convince the record company that we were worth, putting money into, and we were worth, basically investing money into making an album, a whole album, and we made the album, and the 3rd single we released actually was a hit. So, without that guy, we wouldn't have been here. But and if that had happened now, it wouldn't happen.
Yeah. Sitting here, the two of you together, how much of this, in the back of your minds, is an eventuality? Did you both of you kind of know eventually this could happen, or was this not predestined? Was it a matter of factors that brought you guys back together?
Well, don't know if it's predestined, particularly. I mean, you know,
Yes, no, it was absolutely predestined.
Well, he saw it in the stars, obviously.
Yeah, it was. Oh, of course.
You know.
Well, I just think it's one of those. It was a choice, and had we never had done it, you know, we would never have known. And the fact is, the record we've made, Everybody Loves a Happy Ending, is the best one we've done. And so it was. Was it predestined? Probably for the sake of the record, yes.
But you must have known, else I don't think you two would be sitting here, that the new music is that great and worth you guys getting back together and worth putting it out.
Well, that's why we did it. We wanted to, you know, sort of reignite our legacy, so to speak, you know, because we, Tears for Fears kind of hit the rocks at one point, and we just wanted to, every time we would do an interview or something was written about one of us, the other one would always be mentioned. So there was always an element of that being joined at the hip. Mm-hmm. So I think that, you know, there were a few market forces at work because a lot of curiosity within the industry to see what would happen if we did get back together again. Mm-hmm. But overall, I think we wanted to, put behind us all the sort of the bad blood, so to speak, and end on a much more positive note.
Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that for people that don't know. There were years when you guys didn't even talk, is that?
That's right.
Yeah, 9-10 years where we didn't really talk to each other.
Oh, we're not talking now.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not even.
Well,
I'm
talking.
talking.
No, we're talking to you. We're just not
we're
talking
not even looking
to
at each other.
Yeah.
I'm not even aware that you're here.
In fact, it's a split screen.
Yeah, I must mess that up by doing that.
Yes, you did. Well, yeah, but that's modern computer technology.
Right. Okay. We just did that afterwards.
Was there one significant year, moment, call that kind of brought things back together, or was it a series of?
Well, there was a specific time where we had to speak to each other. Started with faxing. You know, we didn't have each other's numbers. Then we ended up talking on the phone, and you know, I think both of us kind of felt, I don't know. I mean, there was a certain sense of relief because you don't know if there's any weirdness there at all after all those years of not speaking to each other. And I think we were both aware of the fact that there really wasn't. You know, we'd moved on so far in those the years in between that I don't think we kind of even quite understood what it was before that in the first place, and why it, or we kind of knew why it fell apart. But I don't think it mattered anymore. You know, the reasons for 1990 in 2000 just didn't matter anymore. I mean, we both had families in the interim period. We both enjoyed ourselves in the interim period. So, you know, I don't think that either of us felt any particular pressure or weirdness about it. And then when I was back in England visiting my family, we both went out to dinner with a few friends, and it was fine. Eventually we got round to talking about music. And then we decided to try and write together with the premise that, you know, if it we didn't know if it was going to be good or not, but we certainly weren't going to do a record if we didn't think it was good. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't until we kind of got a couple of songs into the writing process that we made the decision to make an album. I mean, we very much did it one little baby step at a time, which is a good way of doing it, I think.
Did it feel like the old days when you guys were writing together, or did it seem
No.
like a whole new kind of...
Well, it wasn't. We never, in the old days, so to speak, we never sat in a room together to write songs. This was completely different, and there was a short amount of time where we could actually get together because I was living in England, Curt living in Los Angeles, so it was really the school holidays where I would transport my whole family for a nice break, and we would sit together in a room with a guy called Charlton Pettis, who went on to co-produce and co-write the whole album, and really get very bored and frustrated and wait for inspiration to arrive. And we never used to do that in the old days, not at all. I mean, you know.
We used to sit around with drum machines and computers and things and toys and play with them, and this time it was very much a stripped down form of songwriting where everything was written on acoustic guitar and piano in a room with no backdrop at all, and it was basically just looking for really strong songs.
Mm-hmm. Is your idea now of what makes a good song different than when you guys first started out?
Well, when we first started out, songs were hard to come by, and they just were. Now we had a surplus of songs for this album. I just think it's probably years of having to rack your brain to come up with inspiration makes the whole process a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, this is the longest album we've done with the most tracks on, and we had a bunch left over. Every record we've done together in the past had those songs. That was it. There were none left over. You know? we were pushed to get just that amount of songs on there.
Right. Thematically, how does this album kind of sum up where you guys are?
Well, thematically, this album represents exactly where we are in life. In the carpool lane, doing the school run.
And it's a beautiful album, just in so many ways. But in terms of just the overall feel and how you want audiences to feel from hearing this album, so you can kind of put that into words. Maybe
Well,
it's different from the music you guys have done in the past.
The first few lines of the title track, "Everybody Loves a Happy Ending," wake up, your time is nearly over. So there was a sense of that, you know, if we were going to get back together, it had to be then and now, you know, or else it would just be too late. There's also that sense of, you know, of time running out because of, you know, just mortality, age, dare I say middle age even, you know. So this felt like, you know, the last chance.
What's the next? Is it no longer Supernova or something like that?
No more the supernova.
Supernova, yeah.
No action guaranteed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Is there a certain excitement then about having the excitement back around you guys and being
Well,
back out
it's an odd experience at the moment because the album's just been out for a day. We're excited about the new material, and yet you have an audience that knows the old stuff. So at the moment, there's a little bit of a tug of war between Tears for Fears in its present state and Tears for Fears, the gigantic success
Yeah.
of a hell of a long time ago.
Yeah. We'll talk about balancing all that because obviously you're going to play the old songs and make the fans happy.
Yeah.
You really want them to love the new stuff as well, of course. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one. You know, obviously we feel less connected to some of the old material because it's not. Some of them really involve an emotion that's not valid to us anymore. You know, as you get older, you don't feel that you're not a teenager full of angst anymore. So it's a different emotion, and you know, a couple of things. You try and do them different ways. I mean, say for instance, we tried playing Mad World, which, you know, this guy Gary Jules had covered and became a hit, and we loved that version. And when we were in rehearsal, we tried to do the original version, and we just couldn't do it. It just felt all wrong, and so we had to like spend some time coming up with a different version of that. And it's really trying to sort of update it so emotionally we're tied to it. You know, some songs are a lot harder than others. Obviously, the newer material is far easier for us because, you know, the emotion is there. It's not pretend emotion, you know, and you really want to be into what you're playing. So it can be a little difficult. But, you know, as time goes on, I think the balance will even out because the more people that hear this record, you know, when we go on tour, obviously, primarily the people that are going to come see us on tour are going to have heard the new album by then and have heard it for a month or two, so we'll know the new songs. The last few shows we've done, not many people know the new songs yet. You know, the album was out yesterday, so we did some shows at the weekend. We did one last night, and you know, everyone there last night bought it that day, so you can't be that familiar with the new material. But you know, in a month's time, that'll be different. So I think there'll be a better balance. And as we play things more and maybe come to grips with how to modernize certain songs, it'll be a bit easier.
The title of the album, Everyone Loves a Happy Ending, Everybody Loves a Happy Ending, is that leads you to the question then, is this then the ending? Is this happiness at the end? Are you guys going to continue with all this if this all goes well? Or?
We have absolutely no plans to make another record.
Yeah.
You know, after this one. I mean, I think that this album would have to be pretty damn successful to warrant us doing it again because it's taken quite a long time. You know.
So you mentioned the Gary Jules thing. What was that like when that kind of hit big? Did it bring more attention on you guys to kind of?
Well, we thought when Gary Jules got to number one at Christmas in the UK with Mad World, we thought, well, this is just remarkable timing, and this is like destiny with our album, which was due to come out in April. Then, I mean, the whole thing seemed like a gift from God. However, it was
What he gives with one hand.
he takes with the other, exactly. And so, you know, the whole thing came to a grinding halt, and it was like no one could believe. I mean, all the press we did in the UK and Europe, you know, they all assumed that we were going to take off in a massive way, directly resulting from our first ever hit, Mad World, becoming a fresh hit again.
Talk about musically the journey you guys have taken from a song like Mad World to something in between, like Shout, and now like a song like Lady Bird. Just how the music's changed so much. You kind of put into words that
I just,
progression.
as I said, referred to earlier. I mean, you know, in the early days, songs were hard to come by, and I've lost the point I was going to say. Must have been a lie.
Would you like me to take up from there?
Yeah, go on.
Do you know what you were going to say?
No.
No.
I have no clue.
What was the question?
Just musically.
Musically, I mean, I think that it's hard to explain any journey you go through different periods. I mean, I think that we've always been quite aware that we never wanted to repeat ourselves. You know, I think the Hurting and the production and the production in particular, but the sound of the Hurting definitely is very different to the sound from Songs from the Big Chair, which is definitely very different from Seeds of Love. You know, I mean, we went through a conscious process during the Seeds of Love album where we'd had huge success with Songs from the Big Chair, and we knew we wanted to come back with something where people would go, whoa, didn't really expect that, you know, and which we did. And this time round, we just wanted to go off and do something different again, and that's, you know, hence one of the reasons we sat around a room with acoustic guitars and a piano. It's like, you know, this is now fresh again. You know, doing the same thing is just tedious for us, I think, and you have to find a new way of working each time.
So much of what you guys are doing now is being described as Beatlesque. And you guys have talked about this, you know, many times before. But how much of that is conscious? How much of that is just part of writing good melodic songs?
Well, yeah, part of it is very conscious. It's showboating, it's showing off, and it's kind of showing off the fact that you are a student of music and not just a pop star, you know. And also, I think that we weren't going to get back together again and make an album of fragile, synthesized 80s style music, because I think we're more grown up, we're more robust than that, and we also needed to find common ground and also refer back to our earlier work, and we kind of left off on the album Seeds of Love, which obviously was very Sgt. Pepper's sounding, the title track, and so that's kind of where we picked it up.
You guys look back into the height of your success during the Songs from the Big Chair period and into Seeds of Love. When at its biggest, what was life like for you guys in terms of
Hell.
Yeah, at its biggest, it was a pain in the butt.
Yeah. Neither of us enjoyed it at its biggest, I don't think. You know, I mean, you know, and I think, I mean, even harking back to the last question, I think that, you know, people do see Beatles influences in some of the music on the new record, which, you know, is conscious because we are robust and we don't care. And but there's, you know, but also half of the album is nothing to do with that. You know, I mean, tracks like Sighs of Sorrow and Lady Bird and Last Days on Earth are definitely not Beatles influenced songs. So, you know, you can pick out the ones like Tangerine that are, and maybe a little on Happy Ending, and, you know, but those are the obvious ones. I think, you know, the other ones you find it kind of hard to pin down what the influence is, so it never really gets mentioned. But you know, for us, at the height of success, I just don't think either of us enjoyed it, you know, and I think we're very conscious of the fact that now you just do what you want to do. I mean, for us to go in and make a record, it was really, we just wanted to make the best record we could make. The rest of it you just deal with. You know, you need to be aware that you can't let it interfere with your personal life, you know, and I think as people, the two of us, in our home lives and family lives, are certainly a lot more stable than we were back then, and specifically for me, and it makes a world of difference. You know, we're playing a show last night and I have my 4-year-old daughter standing next to me on the stage because she wanted to. Yeah, it's a different thing, and it's far more relaxed, and we're both far more relaxed about it, which is great, you know.
Yeah. looking back, what did you guys enjoy though? There was a certain moment you guys some shared memories of really a real exciting time with the band that was like, wow, this was cool. Is there a certain period there where you look back and think that period, what it was kind of all about?
Well, you know, making the records is the most fun thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
always
You know,
has been.
I think specific tracks, really, listening to them in the studio to finish mixes. There's a track called Listen, which is virtually an instrumental track on Songs from the Big Chair. I remember finishing that mix in Munich, in Germany, and thinking, my God, this is just beautiful. So I think it's more, and also the track Woman in Chains from Seeds of Love album. It's more those those are the highlights as far as I'm concerned. The odd show, you know, where there's some kind of magic in the air.
How much of the whole video world do you guys still want to be a part of? That was so much of...
Look at us, we don't need to be a part of it anymore, and they don't want us
Well,
to be a
they
part
were
of it
showing,
anymore.
last night when we played Tower Records, they were showing some of the old videos. There's back to back on the TVs, and I'd
We couldn't look.
forgotten
We're like, please
how
turn it off.
horrendous they are, and it's just absolutely terrible.
When was the last time you guys have seen some of that stuff?
Oh,
Never.
No, I mean, like, 15 years ago or whatever. But
I had to show my sons a video, a Seeds of Love video, to prove that I actually did some work once. You know?
Did you enjoy that at the time? Was some of that fun when you were making some of those?
Seeds
Well,
of
the
Love,
Seeds of
yeah.
Love one was
That's
good. I
excellent,
mean,
yeah.
but that was, we really had a limited amount of work on that one because we were just
It's a lot of
sitting
blue
there,
screen.
sitting there in front of blue screen or green screen as they now call it, and Jim Blashford, the director, did pretty much everything else.
Yeah.
So that was a joy to make. But I mean, it's like anyone. I mean, look back at high school pictures. Look back, any pictures of you 15 years ago, and every person I know would be horrified at their own pictures 15 years ago. We, unfortunately, are constantly reminded by video of the way we used to look, which, for us is horrifying. My daughter the other day we did a TV show in the morning, and they were interspersing every commercial break with clips from videos we'd done before, and she didn't believe it was me. She said, "That's not you." No, because you look so different, and it's. They find
I
it
look
hard
exactly the same.
Well, you haven't aged.
Saw that jogging.
So it's weird. I mean, it'd be nice not to have to do the video side of it, to be honest.
Yeah.
It'd be nice. Perfect scenario is you make records and don't have to do anything else. That would be nice. Do them anonymously and no one knows what you look like. That would be great.
Mm-hmm. The kids like the new music?
Yeah.
Very familiar with all these songs at this point?
Well, my youngest one is, I think
He's a little darker.
Yeah, the only track he's got from the new album on his iPod is The Devil.
My kids are younger, so my kids go for the wake up song, which is everybody loves a happy ending because the first thing is an alarm clock and wake up. They find that amusing.
If this does as well as it should, because the album's great and you get a legion of new fans in addition to everyone, is this something you can continue and tour and keep something going for, if not record a new album in the next year, but keep this going, or do you have a set time maybe in 6 months where you're back to your lives before that? Have you even thought about that beyond
No.
this season?
I mean, I haven't really thought about it, to be honest. Again, the best way to deal with all these things is just, a day at a time. That's pretty much it. If anyone had asked me and Roland if we'd have done this album, 8 years ago, we'd have both said, you're nuts. That's never going to happen. And then it happened. So, we could make predictions, but it would be pointless, I think, in the end. If we were enjoying it and happened to get to a stage sometime next year and like, you know what, we got this material, we just happened to write on the road, say, or whatever, then maybe. If there's nothing and nothing's coming and we're both tired of it because touring is tired of saying it, and then we won't do it. So we'll see what happens.
And being a part of this bill, you guys are on this Big K Rock show this weekend with other older bands and newer bands. And talking about just the whole feel of that, half of that's kind of like a flashback kind of vibe to it. There are newer bands, and how much of that do you love? How much of it do you wish you were just doing your own thing and not looking back at all? But there's a sense where you kind of know what I'm trying to say. But
the whole nostalgia bandwagon doesn't feel very good. No, not at all.
No, we've been asked, numerous times to join those kind of tours, which we've always turned down. The idea of it is strange to us, because obviously our prime concern is the new record, and that's what we enjoy the most. So the nostalgia side we don't really care for that much. No, but there are a couple of new good bands on there as well, which is nice. And it's a setup for our tour, really, so we agreed to do it. I mean, and, the thing is, in the end, you go there and you play to the best of your abilities and try and enjoy it, and then you move on to the next one.
Mm-hmm. How exciting is playing live together now? What does it feel like?
Feels good.
Today?
Yeah, last night was good fun. It's just nice to get out there and be sweaty again.
Yeah.
So
there's a different side to playing live than obviously you ever get from being in the studio, which is you don't need to be overly precious about it. I mean, if it's not that great one night, it could be great the next, and you just try and do it better the next day. So I don't know. I think the live playing is a little more relaxed. I mean, and also you don't know what's going to happen. And the nights when it's really good, it's great. And then some nights you're like, boy, we just weren't that good tonight. Well, never mind. There's tomorrow.
Yeah. And you guys are talking. Everyone's happy.
Well, we're kind of talking.
everyone's happy, yeah, but it's early days.
Yeah. Wait till the middle of the tour.
Oh, well, at the moment the tour is only 5 weeks to the US, so I don't think that's going to break anyone's back.
No, I don't think that'll kill us yet.
No.
And what are your hopes in terms of this album, in terms of how it's going to fit in to the way music's going today and what's out there? Is that even a concern, or you guys are just happy you made the album you wanted to make?
It will be nice to make some kind of breakthrough in terms of success, in such that people will no longer dismiss bands that get back together again. People will no longer dismiss bands in their 40s making new